Greetings, gardeners. Welcome back to the Grumpy Gardener Medicine Show. It's been a while. I know there's been some people out there just waiting for me to get started talking about herbal medicine again. Well, the time has come. There hasn't been anything really too interesting in that regard as far as I was concerned lately, but things have come up. And just to put aside one small medical question about physiology that has been coming up occasionally in my comments, every now and then I'll get some viewer who seems to be extraordinarily surprised that Bill can actually chew gum, walk, and talk at the same time because he grows a beard and a mustache. For some reason, people seem to associate facial hair with low IQs. I don't quite understand that, but they find that it's surprising that I actually know something because I've got a beard. Well, just to get that straight, there is almost no direct connection between the hair follicles on my chin and the gray matter in my head. They're mounted around the same bone structure, but that's about as close as they get. So, you know, whether I got a beard or not, it doesn't really affect the way I think. I'm still, you know, probably smarter than the average chicken. So, anyway, my interest today started this morning when I was watching one of the network news shows, and their network news doctor was on talking about a study that had been done in Canada recently where they've discovered that CBD, that's the non-psychoactive cannabinoid in the cannabis plant that's become so popular lately, okay, with people, that CBD in a small study done in Canada was actually able to alleviate a lot of the withdrawal symptoms from opiates. So they took a bunch of women in Canada who had been heroin addicted, and they used one group without CBD, another with CBD, and found a significant reduction in their withdrawal stress when they were using the CBD. We have in our country today sort of an opiate crisis, an epidemic. Mostly, I feel it's been caused by pharmaceutical companies. Drug pushers are drug pushers from my point of view. But wherever it came from, we got a problem. A lot of people out there that are getting addicted to pharmaceutical opiates. Yet our government still says CBD is illegal. It doesn't matter that Martha Stewart talks about it. It doesn't matter. You can find it on the shelf over here at CVS, you know, or that Carl Jr.'s in Colorado infused a hamburger with it. Doesn't matter. It's all over the streets, but technically it's illegal under federal law because it's a cannabinoid. Yeah, and so our government will not allow any decent research to go on the cannabis plant. Now, I'm here to say it is time to free cannabinoids from horticultural fascism. Now, that's just the way I feel about U.S. government feeling that they can tell individuals what plants they can and cannot use. From my point of view, any plant that existed on the face of this planet or will exist on the face of this planet naturally should be able to be grown and used by private individuals without any government intervention. I feel that it is horticultural fascism when the government steps in and says, oh no, you can't have this plant or that plant. Those are bad plants. They're illegal. You know, there is no such thing as a bad plant. All plants are good. All plants are wonderful. Every plant we have on the face of the planet is, in one way or another, good for something or another. And I really don't believe that it's appropriate. I've never believed for a government to ban plants. Now, government's business in controlling commerce, taxation, industry, so the processing of plant materials, the distribution of plant materials, taxes placed on plant materials. It's all great. And that, to me, that's the government's job. That's what it's supposed to do. You know, regulating the safety of a manufactured product that came from a plant. Sure, you know, this is what we're supposed to, that's what we got a government for. We do not have a government that's supposed to come in here and tell us we can't grow a particular plant in our garden or use it ourselves, as long as we're using it on ourselves, and the only problem that will ever be created for it is by us individually. I don't believe in governments protecting us from ourselves. Okay? You know, I want to engage in stupid behavior and do something that might endanger myself. I really don't think, as long as I'm not hurting anybody else, that's the government's business at all. One of the reasons I love Hawaii, the government here sets it up so you can go walk out there on a flowing stream of molten rock and go on up and stick your shoe in it if you want to, you know. Yeah, we have a lot of, you know, approved dangerous activities, like riding on a piece of fiberglass on top of a 30-foot wave, you know, that could crush you into a reef. Hey, it's called fun here. Because of our government's repressive view and fascist attitude towards many plants, including cannabis, the only place we can get any decent research on cannabinoids or any banned material is from other countries. And so we don't have the freedom here for our scientists, our doctors, and so on to study things like cannabinoids. It's not legal. Doctor can be put in jail for it. Takes a real big special permit with a lot of approval through the DEA to be able to even, you know, touch the stuff, which is wrong. So we have to rely currently on studies done in more progressive countries like Canada or Israel, where they realize the value of this plant. It's an incredibly valuable plant. I will admit, there was a day when if you'd ask Green Garden guy, "Hey Bill, what's marijuana good for?" And I'd go, "Oh, cannabis? It's good for a buzz, man. You can get high on that stuff." All right, yeah, well, most of us knew. But as time goes on, my attitudes towards the plant have been changing a lot. At one time, I saw it only as a prohibited recreational intoxicant. And that was, you know, through the 60s, that's what most of us learned, right? But the plant has so much more value to it than that. So much more value, and it's all beginning to come to the surface. In fact, it has incredible worth to us. You will hear, you know, there's not enough study. There's not enough study. Well, unfortunately, the only studies that have ever been done in the United States of any size were to show why cannabis was bad. There have been no really large, good studies that showed why the plant might be good. There is a lot of study. It's ancient. I mean, in Chinese medicine, you can go back and find that cannabis has likely been used pharmaceutically for as much as 5,000 years in China. First mention of cannabis in Chinese literature as being a pharmaceutical is in the 1st century A.D., most likely, 1st to 2nd. And it was in a book. It was called The Divine Farmer's Materia Medica. The book was written by the 1st century Chinese emperor. His name was Shen Nong. He was an emperor, a farmer, and an herbalist. Not about being an emperor, but a man after my own heart who writes books about herbal medicine and farms. I don't know much about him, but he does get the credit of being the first guy that started to put this stuff down. The book, apparently in China, is actually still in use. It was written so well, it still has applications. And in early Chinese pharmacy, cannabis was actually used for a very, very wide variety of different types of ailments, which today actually is what's happening with the plant again, because the claims made about the cannabis plant today in medicine are broad. They are so broad, you know, that it will do this, it'll do that, it'll do this. And the Chinese also believed exactly the same thing. And what's very interesting is that some of the things the Chinese knew 2,000 years ago about the plant, we are just now rediscovering. And this is what prohibition will cause. Prohibition doesn't cause anything but problems for people. I'm not going to go into that any deeper, but I don't believe that prohibitions are a valid or a valuable thing. They create all kinds of social problems. You want to see what prohibition caused with alcohol? Just go watch Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, etc. It was a huge, huge mess, a terrible mistake that we made. Now, in the case of cannabis, the prohibition was easily as bad or worse. It's been going on much longer. We've had a 70-year prohibition. The plant was a blessing to farmers, and the plant was a blessing to medicine for thousands of years until a collusion between with DuPont. DuPont had a patent on nylon, and DuPont was scared that his nylon product would not take off in this country as long as he had cannabis to compete with, because at that time, all rope, all canvas, much paper, many pieces of clothing, so many items came from the cannabis plant, and they were easily as good or better than DuPont's nylon that he was making from coal, I believe, and had a patent on. Well, he wanted protection, and so he went in and he got Harry Anslinger, who was in charge of narcotics in this country and was a notorious racist, to work with William Randolph Hearst, who used yellow journalism to smear the plant in the media, making all sorts of false claims about it, and in turn lobbied Congress, and then Congress went and illegalized the plant, protecting DuPont's patent, and so on. It was all about corporate lobbying, basically, is how the plant became illegal. So we have thousands of years of friendly use and the farmer's friend, and the sick man's friend, until one day DuPont needed his nylon protected, and so the plant became a demon. And so for many of us, we only saw it as a recreational drug. For the rest of the country, it was a dangerous substance not to be touched or messed with. It would kill your children and so on. So if you think that only, dictatorial governments engage in propaganda, you got another thing coming. Here we call it advertising, but we get propagandized. I was propagandized terribly through my life. It took a complete re-education from my point of view to be able to see this plant in a new light. That's why I'm sitting here and talking about it. I really think that the plant needs to be freed. We need to free the cannabinoids. We got to get them out from underneath government control. Some of the indoctrinated conservative people we have in our governments today, and a lot of our populists who seem to think that this plant is a terror, whereas it's actually a blessing and a benefit, and it should be freed. You can look at the maps and look at the entire western United States, where most of the states have in their constitution binding initiatives that if the citizenry says, hey, we're going to do this, and it passes and it makes the test of the court, that they can change the laws, whether the people in government want that done or not. Well, that exists across the whole western U.S., and so right now the whole western U.S. has legal cannabis, because you have some rather progressive people out there thinking ahead and realizing we've just been duped. It's time to get rid of this, because you have political prisoners sitting in federal penitentiaries all over the country just because they smoked it or they sold a bag of it or they grew some of it. These people are not evil people, and they do not belong in jail. They're basically political prisoners of a horticultural fascist regime that just has a real problem with any kind of plant that might mess your head up. So anyway, the interest with the Chinese medicine for me and today's current studies is that the Chinese use this plant for agitation, for hysteria, for mania withdrawal, for insomnia, for spasms, for tics, and for seizures. 2,000 years ago, they knew the stuff was good to control seizures. What's one of the big things in the news today? The THC controls seizures in children. It also works on PTSD. It's used today for obsessive compulsive disorders. And it works on epilepsy. What's epilepsy cause? A seizure, It's like what's happening today is we are just now slowly beginning to rediscover the things that we already knew about the plant thousands of years ago. That's what prohibition does. It sends you backwards. It doesn't send you forward. And we really, really need, I'm appealing to everybody out there, if you're in a state where you don't have at least medical access to cannabis, that appeal to your government. Tell them, get off the grass, Sam. It's time. That it's been going on too long. It's been destructive, and it's not good. The study in Canada on the heroin withdrawal, our government is pounding about painkillers, opiates. Yet here we have a relatively harmless substance that will help ease the withdrawal. And in fact, it's a relatively harmless substance that eases pain. Ancient Chinese medicine used this stuff for all manner of anesthesia in ancient China. It was used to control minor pain, and it is a great anti-inflammatory. Probably not such a good plant for the youth when your brain is still wiring itself and growing. I would suggest not using cannabis at that point in your life. But for the aged, for people who are old, and most of us old geezers, we know it's inflammation. Well, the plant has extraordinary anti-inflammation properties, and so use with the plant can really help reduce some of that stuff in your body that's making you feel old. Many old people have problems with being able to sleep properly. Cannabis can induce a decent natural sleep, and it can do it better than the pharmaceutical sleeping pills do, you know. The other quality about the plant that I appreciate as the Green Garden guy, this is a medicine that's quite potent. It's very useful over a wide spectrum of ailments, and you can take a seed and put it into your garden and grow it right over there. That is, provided you live in a state where that's now considered permissible. Even if it takes a permit to do it, it's permissible in many states and in all of Canada. It's time the U.S. government just gets off this plant. They just got to get off it. They got to let it go, and they got to start to let people look at the plant and realize what it's good for. In England, they've allowed research on cannabinoids pharmaceutically, and there are a few companies over there who've developed some incredible drugs based on cannabinoids, mostly that work on things like epilepsy and seizures and so forth. I've made pretty good money by investing in English pharmaceutical companies that work with cannabinoids. The research has been rather extraordinary. Now, in this country, of course, you know, Big Pharma really doesn't want to touch it because the plant's already been well documented going back thousands of years, so you can't patent anything from it. And that's their problem. You can't patent it, I can't control it, you know. And so here it will be really, I think, mostly the business of people who sell herbal supplements, you know, and that sort of thing. Probably because it was a narcotic, when they finally release it into the public, there'll be a little bit more stringent controls over some of this, but maybe not, who knows. Right now, the CBD seems rampant all over, and it's a good thing. I don't know if CBD works on everything people claim that it does, but it does work on a lot of things they claim it does. And you know, and that's not a material that's going to get you high anyway. But so there you have it, folks. We are only now beginning to relearn what ancient Chinese pharmaceutical herbalists already knew a long, long time ago. And again, like I say, the argument, oh, it needs more research, we won't know what happens, you know, that is such junk. They found seeds of cannabis in Neolithic caves in Germany some decades back, which means during the Stone Age, cannabis had actually made itself into Northern Europe. That was not well known until this discovery of these seeds in a German cave. I had to laugh. I got such a kick out of it, really, because I think we already know that Northern European civilization basically became an urban type of situation out of an agrarian community because of the cultivation of barley and the making of beer. I mean, beer is at the basis of why we had to stop wandering around Europe to pick barley in the wild. And once we started growing it in fields, we had so much of it we couldn't drag it around. And then we figured out how to preserve the stuff for the winter by fermenting it into beer. Beer made us stay home. We built houses in Europe because we had beer. Well, now I'm finding out that my ancient ancestors also had cannabis. Right on, man. Beer and cannabis in ancient Germany. You can see that Stone Age guy, you know, wearing the buffalo pelts out there with a big old spear in his hand, running after mastodons. Burning a fat one and slamming beer, right? No, not really, but I think it's kind of a funny image. I like it. So it's been around so long that if there was anything that was going to happen because of it, guess what? It's already happened. It's already happened. And so it's no worry. And when it comes to studying medicine on the plant, as I say, go back a couple thousand years. If you can read ancient Chinese, you're going to find out most of what we already know about the plant. They studied it. We won't, see. And so they actually have documents that are still valid today. So this idea that there isn't any research is just a load of malarkey, you know. It means there isn't any money in the research. At least nobody thinks there is. So there you have it. Free the cannabinoid molecule. Aloha, y'all hang loose. Don't smoke too much.